Peace and blessings of God be on you. So today we will do question number 4, which says that if the Creator is so merciful as all religions claim, then why is there so much suffering? To answer this question, we will use the result of question number 3, although it will be used a bit later. In question number 3, we logically proved that there is life after death. We will also use the fact that we have a limited lifespan on this earth. So even if someone lives to be 150, which probably no one has ever done in history, what ratio does this 150 years have compared to the eternity that follows that person's death? Mathematics tells us that this ratio is 0 because we are dividing a finite number by positive infinity. Thus, we have extremely little time to live in this world, but an eternity to live in the next world. So my first point is that the suffering that anyone goes through in this world is very little if we compare our limited time here with the eternity hereafter. But now let us answer the question that why do we have suffering even for this relatively small duration? The best way to answer this question is to put the following counter question to the critic. You, the critic, have seen part of this life and have surely experienced some sort of suffering. For example, suffering from thirst. Suppose you are in a situation where you are extremely thirsty and have no water available to you for whatever reason. Thirst is growing with time. Now, there are only 2 possibilities. Either you will eventually die of thirst, or you will somehow get the water you are craving for. And if you die, then the pain ends anyways. Second possibility is you get the water you are craving for, which feels very good. Now, let's add hunger to this. What do you feel during eating a food of your liking when you are really, really hungry? So now, having known the pleasures of drinking water in extreme thirst and eating food in extreme hunger, suppose you are given a choice between life in which there is no thirst and no hunger and hence no food and drink, and another life in which there will be hunger and thirst for a while, followed by nice cool water and tasty food. Which life will you opt for? Ask your heart, and even deeply suffering persons will opt for the second life. So are we criticizing God for creating the sort of design which we ourselves will go for if given the choice between that design and the direct opposite of it? A careful look at this discussion will show that we have proved that suffering is essential for us in order to be able to enjoy pleasure. And that if we are given a choice between a life which has suffering followed by pleasure and a life which has no knowledge of suffering and hence of pleasure, we will ourselves opt for the former life. Someone may object here that I'm implying that suffering is small and then it is followed by pleasure. But what about those people who spend their whole lives in suffering? To answer this, we first note that even those lives which appear to an outsider to be totally composed of suffering, for example, the life of a poor man living in the poorest country of the world, who does not even have one meal a day on a regular basis. Even such lives have their own pleasures, which are sometimes so great that even the richest persons in the world would give a lot to have those simple pleasures. Human beings are designed in a way that they adapt themselves to all situations. What may appear as extreme suffering to a rich person may not be felt anywhere near like that by the poor person who is going through that. But there's more to it. Even if a person insists that all his or her life is suffering in totality and there is no happiness that I'm talking about, he or she should recall what we said in the beginning of this question. When I speak of life, I'm speaking of life in both worlds, the one here and the one hereafter. And now I'm using question number 3, as I mentioned before, where we proved that there is life after death. So when I talk of life, I'm talking of life in both worlds, the one here and the one hereafter. Now, as discussed in the beginning, the span of life on this earth is negligible compared to that after death. Thus, I'm completely justified in saying that even for a totally suffering person on this earth, there is only a small period of suffering followed by an eternity of happiness. The last objection that can be raised is that how do I know that there will eventually be eternity of happiness in the hereafter? This will be answered in question 21, where I will prove that paradise is forever, while hell will eventually come to an end. God bless you.